About 40,000 protesters turned out on and around Boston Common this weekend for very different causes. Fewer than 100 of them were addressing and attending a rally organized by a group that said its mission was to promote free speech. The original list of speakers at that event included some right-wing extremists, which drew masses of counter-protesters. And although most in that group of 40,000 or so were peaceful, by the end of the day there were 33 arrests, incidents in which police say bottles of urine and other projectiles were thrown at them. And there were numerous people who said they couldn't get to the so-called free speech rally at the center of it all because of the crowds surrounding it. I'm joined now by the organizer of that original free speech rally, John Medlar, who has described his group as a coalition of libertarians, progressives, conservatives, and independents. We're also joined by Dan Linsky, a former superintendent-in-chief with the Boston Police Department, who since started his own security firm, and WGBH News reporter Bianca Vasquez-Tones, who was at the protest and rally throughout the day Saturday. Thank you all for being here. John, let me start with you. Boston has gotten a lot of praise for its handling of the proceedings on Saturday, including, among others, from President Trump, who tweeted, great job by all law enforcement officers and Boston Mayor Marty Walsh. Police are looking tough and smart. How did things look from your vantage point?
Well, you know, as from our vantage point, it wasn't quite the event that we had envisioned. However, to paraphrase Scott Adams, he called it the greatest, most successful free speech rally of all time.
This is the Dilbert guy.
Yes, this is the Dilbert guy. He pointed out that, well, hey, here's a bunch of guys that came together to have a free speech rally saying, hey, we don't think there's enough free speech and we'd like some. And the optics of having 40,000 people turn out to say no, they didn't even get to hear what we had to say. They just at the mere rumor of some hate speech going on somewhere, that's enough to get 40,000 people out there to try to shut down a free speech event. I mean, that pretty much makes our point for us.
Maybe it's just a question of tone or emphasis, but you sounded on Facebook, I thought, pretty frustrated with the way things have played out. A couple things you said. I just want to quote you. Mayor Walsh recklessly whipped thousands of decent, well-meaning fellow Bostonians into a frenzy by spreading lies about us. Would have completely proven him wrong if police hadn't been ordered to keep press and our supporters out. Also, this has only proven my point. There's a massive cultural intolerance against dialogue in this country. No longer left versus right. It's everyone's freedom versus authoritarian hate. And those are strong words.
Yeah, they were very strong words, and I stand by that statement. I do think it's absolutely accurate, even if I was, frustrated at the time I wrote them.
There was a buffer zone of, according to the city, 35 or 40 yards around the event that the public couldn't enter, that the press couldn't enter. Some reports have put it closer to 75 yards. If people had gotten into that buffer zone, what would they have heard you and the other rally participants talking about?
They would have heard us talking about First Amendment-related issues. This wasn't just an event for anyone to come in and just say whatever the heck they want. When we say this is a free speech rally, we mean this is a rally about the issue of free speech, and that's what every one of the 14 people that we had on our list came here to speak about.
Anyone talking about imperiled white identity or the superiority of white culture or anything like that?
No. The most even the so-called extremists that were sometimes cited, the most that I've ever heard them say is that bigotry against everyone is wrong. So including bigotry against ethnic Europeans, but that's not to say that bigotry against people of color is somehow okay.
Two more quick questions. I know we have two of you here. You're here for a reason, I promise. But two more quick questions for John. Why no amplifier? You guys could have used a battery-powered amplifier according to the permit. Why didn't you?
We were worried about the cost, but that's probably an investment that we're going to have to make for a future event because we've never done anything this big before. There were things that we did not foresee, and an amplifier would have been extremely helpful. That's something that we're going to have to get for next time.
Okay, and lastly, briefly, you wrote on Facebook that the BPD saved your life by evacuating you in an armored car. Describe that scene for me.
It was to describe it, I have literally never been so hot in my life. It was like an oven inside there, being packed with I don't know how many people. We had filled the benches, at the sides of the truck. We had people sitting on the floor. Then we had people sitting on the laps of the people on the benches, and people sitting on top of the people on the floor. We had literally, every single body that we could pack into those vehicles were packed in there. It was extremely uncomfortable. But what I was telling the other people in there, some of the younger guys were really starting to lose their heads and get hysterical. But what I was telling people, just calm down, just focus on, keep 1 minute after another, just get through this. They're going to get us out of here, and that's exactly what the Boston Police did.
Bianca, thank you for your patience. You were covering this event all day Saturday. Did you see at any point people who were part of John's event threatened?
I saw people wearing "Make America Great Again" hats walking through the crowd, and who were chased and taunted.
They were chased by people who were
counter-protesters, yeah, and taunted by them.
What kind of taunts?
I can't say them on the air.
I'd like to point out that one of our organizers who was blocked from getting into the event was jumped and assaulted by Antifa.
Did you see any flat-out assaults, as John just described?
I did not see any flat-out assaults, no. But I did see the folks at the rally who were in this pavilion cordoned off. I saw them escorted out by police towards sort of a safe space by a brick park building behind a big gate. And I saw them sequestered there while a huge, angry crowd waited for them. I mean, I guess they thought that they would be marched out.
And you heard chants, right, expressing a hope that they would be marched
did.
out?
I heard that. So the protesters were yelling, "Make them walk, make them walk." And the police in riot gear came out and kept moving them back.
Did you see anything like that going the other way? Any aggressiveness or threatening behavior on the part of people who were supportive of John's rally, either toward counter-protesters or members of the media?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I saw some people definitely antagonized me as a member of the media. Fake news. Have you seen any swastikas here? Or, you know, are you reporting the truth? This sort of thing. People taking pictures of me.
Taking pictures?
Taking pictures of me. A few people who seemed to be very suspicious of me as a journalist, taking pictures of me and taking pictures of protesters as well.
Do you know why they were taking pictures? I mean, what's
I
the
don't.
idea?
I asked, and I took pictures back.
That's a good approach. The Boston Police Department, Bianca, told us today that they kept the press outside that buffer zone for our own safety and for the safety of the public. Does that explanation ring true to you?
It looked much safer where John Medlar was with the
safer
rest of the crowd.
In the bandstand.
In the bandstand. In the pavilion, there was no one, you know, there was this huge moat around them of emptiness. And, I mean, I couldn't tell what they were doing. It looked like they were, you know, chatting up there. And and where I was, it was heated. People were engaging in some, you know, useful discussion for the most part. If you saw someone usually wearing a Trump shirt or Trump hat or GOP T-shirt, and some people would walk up and kind of, you know, say, "What are you doing here? Why are you here? We don't want you here." And I mean, there was confrontation in the crowd.
So if one of these happens again, you'd like to be able to get closer.
Of course. I want to know what they were saying. I want to know who these people are. I want to be able to judge for myself and let listeners judge for themselves, you know, what they're about.
One of my biggest concerns was I was seeing, you know, people with the Trump hats and with American flags and with other people that were obviously here to listen to our rally, and I was really concerned about them being trapped out in the crowd, and I wanted to get them into our event, but unfortunately I was prevented from getting to any of the outer gates because they told me I couldn't get near the crowd.
Let me go to Dan Linsky for a bit, and thank you for you've been the most patient of all, which I appreciate. Is it possible that the BPD went a little too far in terms of isolating John's rally, putting it at such a remove from all the counter-protesters and all the media that they may have spoken freely, but their speech was inaudible and no one heard it?
Sure, there's no exact science to this. And, you know, in Virginia, they didn't have enough distance between the protesters and the organizers of that rally.
That's for certain.
There was intelligence that people were intent on throwing bottles of acid at the rally.
Intelligence here in Boston.
Intelligence here in Boston, that people were going to throw bottles of acid at the speakers and the rally participants. Having that knowledge, Boston police had an obligation to extend whatever they could buffer zone to protect the speakers and the people who were permitted for that rally. And I think they did that. It seems like there were some challenges. We were talking earlier, miscommunications on who was let in and not let in. BPD is going to err, you know, on the strict side of who they were told could come in and not come in. And as John pointed out, BPD probably prevented physical assaults, if not worse, on the rally participants by getting them out of there in the manner they did.
Let me ask you, and I don't mean to pass over too quickly the safety considerations, which obviously were very important, especially post-Charlottesville. Commissioner Evans made a comment in a press conference after that I think raised my eyebrows and the eyebrows of a lot of other people. He said that if some people who had wanted to speak at John's event were not able to get into the bandstand, quote, "That's a good thing because their message isn't what we want to hear." Is that really the BPD's call to determine which messages get to be heard and which ones don't?
Yeah, I didn't see exactly what the commissioner saw. I don't know what he was responding to. I can tell you that Boston Police doesn't get the First Amendment right. We don't get to pick a side to say somebody can speak, somebody can't speak. We have to go right down the middle. So I think it was a long day for BPD. The commissioner had many balls in the air he was juggling. I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but BPD doesn't get a chance to decide, and we have to allow the speakers, even in our professional life, law enforcement in our professional life. You saw an individual commented on the rally in Charlotte who put a notice up on Facebook.
You're talking about Springfield
Springfield,
cop who,
right.
Yeah.
Well, if he worked for me and I could prove he made that tweet or Facebook post, he'd be fired.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement, unlike a lot of professions, doesn't have a First Amendment right completely outside the work, because you have the ability to say what you want. You just don't have the ability to say what you want and be a police officer. And we've got to be careful of making sure that we are right down the middle and allowing free speech, which I think was the intent of John's rally, that free speech should be allowed by everyone on all sides. Some we hate and some we think is despicable, and we have the right to not listen to it. We have the right to speak loudly against it. We don't have a right to suppress it from other people.
John, really briefly, then we got to go. Are you guys going to do this again?
We have further plans for the future. I can't tell you exactly what those plans are because we're still discussing it, but I can tell you that you haven't seen The Last of Us.
All right. John Medlar, Dan Linsky, Bianca Vasquez-Tonis, thank you all for being here.